Welcome to the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. I'm Helinski. Glad you could join us here today. We have another great guest here today. This one, a 2001 Hall of Famer, the one from North Avenue, now via Virginia, the one and the only Kraig Broecker. Kraig, good to see you, my friend, fellow North Avenue guy. It's always
right.
good to have you guys on. You know that?
Yep. Thanks for having me. Go Gratwick.
Exactly. Go Gratwick. Love your jersey in the background.
It is.
Love to see that. It's probably your man cave, isn't it?
I am in my bunker, I should say. Yeah, my wife did that when I turned 50. Framed my jersey with the NT Hall of Fame stuff back there. So I was very proud of that, and very honored actually.
For people not familiar with your career, walk us through it.
Well, it started in Little League. It started when I was 8 years old. We were members of the Tiger Cat organization, and we did the Cats, the Cougars, the Cubs, all the way up to the Tigers. And met a lot of football players during that time. Older folks, the Montesanis, got to be involved in all the activities that the North Tonawanda Tigers did. That morphed into the 49ers because I think the Tigers went away somewhere in the mid-'70s. So I was a 49er for actually 1 year. And then that folded, and I don't know if it folded, but my dad and some other folks formulated the NTAA. So I was the first year North Tonawanda Athletic Association football player, which was very exciting. Then on to Resl. Ninth grade, we had an undefeated season at Resl, which most people that went to Resl at that time had undefeated seasons. We were pretty unstoppable with, George Dermistich as the coach. We were just, men amongst boys, it seemed at that time. Nobody could touch us. The nice thing about that was, we got to play a lot in the first half, and then all of the rest of we pretty much sat the rest of the second half. So a lot of the other players got to play, and that was really nice to see. So from there, obviously, went to JV. Actually, me and Sam Monasani were asked to, practice with the varsity at that time. So we were sophomores. Didn't happen a lot, but we were honored to go up there and play. And I actually got a chance to play with my brother, who was a senior that year. So we practiced with them, I think, for the first 2 weeks. The hell double days practicing, trying to get in shape because nobody was really in shape that time. By the time you got to camp, maybe some people were, but you got sore, you got 2 a days, you take a nap in the middle of the afternoon just to get some sleep for the afternoon practice. But that was a pretty good team they had up there. But at the end of it, Coach Ramsey at the time pulled me and Sal aside, and they offered us a slot on varsity as sophomores. And me and Sal had discussed it a little bit earlier that if we were asked to move up, what do we want to do? And we pretty much both decided we wanted to play with our classmates. I don't know how much playing time I would have got up on varsity to begin with. And, we knew we were going to have a pretty good team at JV, and we just wanted to have fun. So we declined Coach Ramsey's offer and, just went back down to JV under Coach Anastasi and had an undefeated season on the JV team. So, we had a good season there. Then in 77, obviously, you're a junior, you play up to varsity and play 2 years of varsity ball. First year was a little rough. We didn't have a great record in 77, I believe. Ended up winning maybe, I think, 3 games, 3 and 5. Probably could have won 2 more. And then my senior year, we had a very good junior year class coming up through the ranks. So I had to review some statistics, and it's pretty shocking what actually happened. But our senior year, we did fairly well. We were 4-2 in the conference. The 2 games we lost were those 2 games that we probably should have lost. They were against, I believe, Jamestown and West Seneca? No, Kenmore West. But the 2 games we did lose, we shouldn't have lost. It was one against Orchard Park, and the other one was, Tonawanda, which that was a tough one. losing to Tonawanda after NT had won probably 8 years in a row, maybe longer, I don't know. And that was really hard. I think we dominated that game. We had some mistakes, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But through all those years, I played running back, and then linebacker, inside linebacker, outside linebacker. Those are my two positions.
You mentioned to me earlier that JV you ran a different type of offense than you did as a freshman and then as a senior, which was kind of different for North Tonawanda because during the Vader years, I'll use that as an example, everybody ran the same offense. Did you find that to be, or looking back today, do you find that to be a little peculiar?
It was a little peculiar. The numbering schemes were the same, right? You got your number, odd, even holes on either side. Your running backs, quarterback 1, 2, 3. So it's a 135 buck. I mean, that's pretty vanilla. The thing I think that was different with the Ramsey years versus the Anastasia years is Ramsey ran. It seemed to be like a Notre Dame type style offense where the wingback would go in this motion behind the tailback, and we didn't do any of that in the JV era. So when I say different, that in my mind comes to my mind is that there was a wingback that always would maybe go in motion behind the tailback, and they would have options to either pitch it to him or hand off on a counter. And the only motions that we had done at that point were like little maybe inside motions across the center, across the quarterback. But again, it's been almost 40 years, so it's hard to remember exactly. But yeah, as far as the numbering sequence, those were the same. The play calling probably a little bit different with Ramsey than Anastasia.
You mentioned Anastasia. You mentioned George Dermisic.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those gentlemen, or maybe another coach, had the most influence on you?
Probably, well, George Dermisic was my first coach, and I actually in 8th grade I was like the student statistician for the freshman year, so I got to basically be on the sideline with George Dermisic for 2 years. I couldn't play in my 8th grade year. I was too young, but I was there on the sidelines recording all his play calls, all the stats. Got to watch the freshman play. It was Mark Fitzgerald, Rogers, that crew. They were very good. They went undefeated also. So I got to spend a lot of time with George Dermisic. But to boil it down, I think my favorite coach was John Chisera. He was my running back coach. He was, we actually, I helped him out in his house a few times, put in insulation in there. So we had a good rapport. He was a funny guy. He was Italian like myself. Not that Anastasia isn't, but yeah, I got along with all the coaches, even John Vona, another Italian. But John Vona was more of he was a line coach. And, I would have played the line in a heartbeat if you asked me, because I didn't really care what position I played, to tell you the truth. I just wanted to play, loved hitting, loved the game. North Tonawanda was a great place to, grow up and play that game, from Little League. I mean, we had 2 Little League teams growing up in North Tonawanda. You had the 49ers and then the Tigers. I mean, and I think we have in the younger age group, when we had, I think the Cats and the Cubs. So in the 8 and 9-year-old, we had 2 teams just in the Tigers, and I think the 49ers had 2 teams. I don't know what it is today. I'm sure it's not that much as far as the participation in football. But it was a great experience. I love my teammates. We had a great time.
Talked about your JV team being undefeated and the one before that, Mark Fitzgerald's team being undefeated.
And my brother's team before that.
Right. Why do you think it didn't translate well going to junior varsity and then on to varsity? Because there were some good years and there were some lean years with NT.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we've always talked about that between my brother and my friends and the other classes, how we dominated so much, even like Wrazin and Payne. Payne did pretty well. Rezel was more dominant. And when we got together, Payne and Rezel, I became friends with the Payne guys like that, and they're my best buddies today. But we had great dominant teams at JV. I mean, nobody could touch us. Now, I always thought that we in North Tonawanda matured quicker than everybody else, meaning we were bigger, we were faster than any other team. And especially for myself, I only gained maybe 10, 15 pounds between my freshman year and my senior year. I was like 145 as a freshman. I was like 165 as a senior. So, I think Sal Monasani was the same way. I mean, Sal was a stud of our team. He was the heart of our team. He had a beard in ninth grade. Sal did. So I think we matured really quick, and then everyone started to catch up with us, which I think made it, obviously, competition-wise, more difficult to compete. That's my theory. Don't know if it's true. Seems to hold water.
Who were some of the players you played with that you looked up to and had influenced you as well too?
It started out with years ago. So I'm talking about John Monasani I looked up to him. Played little league football with him and his brother Richie. So I always looked up to John as a big brother and mentor. Started going to his games. John Rossi, Webb at center. You could see his hair fluffing out of his helmet. I mean, I used to go to the NT games and sit up in that beautiful stadium of Vader and just watch those guys and imagine myself playing one day on that field. And there's a bunch of other guys. Frank Weich. Just some of those guys I just looked up to and wanted to emulate.
What kind of memories do you have of playing at the old George Vetter Stadium over behind Payne High School?
It was a great stadium. Sad to see the stands go. I thought those stands, they were concrete, they were heavy. The field was beautiful. Had that nice crown on it. Had the tunnels. I mean, what high school stadium around the Buffalo area had tunnels where it almost looked like a professional stadium if that thing was wrapped all the way around. And some of the TNT games, you look in the end zone crowd, and there's crowds going all the way around, the end zone to boot. Those days were fantastic. But that stadium was really nice. The lights were great. They put in a new scoreboard on the facade of the school. That was nice. My only issue with that stadium is we didn't get to practice on it enough. So before a night game, we get on a bus, head over there. They turn the lights on, and we got to practice. That was a thrill. And for quarterbacks, especially, if a quarterback's doing an out or throwing it, you're pretty much throwing, 3 feet down. It's not a flat field, so I could see a quarterback having a little bit of an issue trying to hit a receiver on the outside and having to manage that crown. But it was a beautiful stadium.
How would you describe the old Clint Small Stadium during TNT games?
Well, that was the same way. I don't like that field because that's the field we lost on in '78. They had the large stands on one side of the field, as I recall, and they didn't have many stands on the other side. So, a lot of the NT fans would just be on the turf, on the ground, on the opposite side of the field. But those end zones were packed with people. And then I think you had John Strauss' Birch Beer place, and one end zone, you had people hanging out the windows, watching the game. And I became really good friends with John Strauss because we actually played college together at William Jewell the following year. And John was the quarterback for Tonawanda. And that small stadium, I think, right?
78 game. Had to have been a big heartbreaker for if you're an NT fan. I mean, not going to dwell on it too much, but Tim Noka had 2 field goal attempts in the last 5 minutes that didn't succeed on it.
Yeah, the first one was close. You thanks for posting those videos on YouTube because I hadn't seen that game since I played it. And I didn't realize that Tim had an opportunity for a short field goal prior to the one that he missed, which was a little bit longer. And I think he had the distance on each one. I think he just sailed on him, wide right or wide left. I don't know. But we had opportunities to win that game. Well, the first mistake was we had an interception for a touchdown, sort of in the first quarter. It tipped off Chrissy Laper's fingertips and went right into the gullet of a Tonawanda player, and he ran it in for touchdown. So that set us behind. Then we plowed ahead. We came back 14-7. We had an opportunity to go up 21-7. We had a wide receiver wide open at the 10-yard line and had the pass right here, and we dropped it. Another opportunity, we had a center screen set up, and I think we dropped that one too. And then we had some penalties, and we'll give credit to Tonawanda. They were running a veer offense, and we never faced a veer offense or a veer option. John Stroud ran it very well. He rode the running back. He either kept it or pitched it, and we had to be able to, tackle the veer guy, tackle the quarterback, and then get the pitch guy. And we didn't really do that as well as we should have. Looking back at the tape and thinking about what I remember. And then, of course, they beat us by a point. They tied it up, and they were going for one, and the ball centered high, went right into Barron's hand, I think. I don't know. And then he took off around the left end. I was on the right end. I was hoping he was coming towards me, but he went around the different end, and he scored 2 points, and that was the difference of the game.
Prior to us deciding to do this conversation, you went through your mother's scrapbook, and you told me it was a little bit emotional for you. You hadn't probably dug into it in many, many years. How tough was it, or how much enjoyment did you have going through that?
Well, my mom saved everything. She's got articles going back to the Tiger Cats when they used to actually write up their own little articles and papers, to JV to freshmen, JV, varsity. I was looking at this right here. So this is an old page from one of the TNT game. You can see how old it is and ripped up it is. But I'm looking at it again before it deteriorates. And my mom put it in those little plastic things, in a scrapbook. But now it's sticking to the backside. So I have to gingerly, move the paper. I'll probably scan them in, someday and, keep it around. But it was very emotional. And one thing I wanted to bring up too is I was shocked that I got into the Hall of Fame, quite honestly. But it came at such a time and that it was a blessing. My mom was diagnosed with cancer earlier that year. I accepted to go up to North Tonawanda in person, to be honored on the field in the banquet, which was fantastic. And my mom and dad and my brother came up, and it was the last time my mom got to see all of her friends and family from North Tonawanda, because they had moved to North Carolina that about 3 years earlier than that. So it was my mom's last hurrah, and I was just blessed that this honor gave her the opportunity to go back up there and see her sister and all of her friends.
How big of an influence was your father on your brother Kent and yourself?
Oh, my dad was huge. He got us started in all the sports. Funny thing is, my dad, he was more of a basketball player than a football player, but he let us do what we wanted to do, and he never pushed basketball on us. Number one, I was too short. So that didn't really work out, but he let us alone. He didn't push us too hard. He was a tough dad, but he was fair and honest. He gave us all the opportunities. We had to ride our bikes to practice everywhere we went, whether it's baseball, football. I remember put my shoulder pads on my little 2-wheel bike and going to that field right across from Payne Avenue is where we practiced Little League. And then my brother, he had some hard luck. He was a tough football player, but he just got injured his freshman year, JV year. and his senior year. And he was the starting fullback his senior year and played the first game. And then in practice that following week, he got hit and threw out his shoulder, dislocated his shoulder, and he was finished. So that was really rough. And my brother was he was an NT football guy all the way, and I really felt bad that he didn't have the opportunity to fulfill his dream in that senior year.
You've been living in Virginia for quite a few years now.
Yes.
And if you meet some people for the first time and you start talking about your old high school days and playing football, what would you tell them about growing up and playing for North Tonawanda?
I would say, the tradition that we had in North Tonawanda, in that whole Western New York area with football, just a hard-nosed town, nothing fancy about our town, but just hard grit, working people, enjoyed everything that we did together as a community, very close-knit community, and, we were tough, hard-nosed football players. That's the way I view myself. I wasn't a fancy, type of running back. I was more of a put your head down and, I'd try to make a cut here and there, but if there was no room, I'd put my head down and, plow, spin, and try to get more yards. It was just I would just say we're just a hard, gritty, football town.
Were the practices harder than the actual games?
Our practices?
Yes.
We hit a lot. I mean, my son, he's a senior now at Ole Miss, and he played football, Little League, just like I did, JV, all the way up through the ranks. And, I'd watch some of his practices, and they just don't hit like we used to hit. Granted that things have changed, concussions and all that stuff. I get it, but we would scrimmage, I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe have Thursday off, and then Friday game. Sometimes we had a Saturday game. It wasn't always a Friday night game, but we scrimmaged a lot. We hit a lot, and our practice. So our Vader Stadium was great. Our practice field not so great. I mean, it was in back of the high school. Never got watered. It was dusty, rocks. So you wear spikes, and your spikes are supposed to go into some sort of ground, to give you some leverage or give you some grip, and there was just nothing there. So our practice fields could have been a lot better, but our practices were pretty intense.
And compare your career to your son's high school career, could you play in this day and age?
In my mind, I could. They're bigger and faster than we were. In general, they are. We were a fast team, but we didn't have any size. Really, my senior year, my junior year too. I think our biggest lineman was Frank Jastrzemski, and I think he went maybe 200 pounds, which, it's pretty decent size, but it's not, a 250-pound mauler like I'm seeing in these high schools that we play up here. I play. My son went to Briar Woods. Stonebridge wins state titles every year. Briar Woods, Trace McSorley was their quarterback, won 3 state titles. These guys were really good. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, before I forget, is that my senior year, we had more juniors starting than we had seniors. And when I was looking back at the roster, that page I just showed you, our whole line was juniors, except Dennis Bigham. Bill Banfield got hurt halfway through the season, so he was out. But I think our starting offense, we had 4 seniors, and our defense maybe 5. And during that year, Anastasi wanted to try to 2 platoon. He wanted to, keep guys fresh. But I also think he was trying to get the juniors a little bit more playing time than they had, and I think they won the states, the next year. But that team, before us or prior to us was very good. So you had a guy like Sal Monasani who was only regulated to the defensive side of the ball my senior year. So I wish Sal would have been on my offensive side, because I liked following him when he pulled. He would just blow up people, and I would just be on his tail. And Sal was always looking for that opposite jersey and just trying to just trying to blow him up. So it is what it is. But
Coach Anastasi was trying to send a message to the seniors that he was going to play the best players. If they happen to be juniors, so be it.
Nope. He said we're going to two platoon. And me and Sal looked at each other. Me, Sal, and Mark Redinger were co-captains, and even Mark Redinger. We were pretty much both way players our junior years. We both played defense and offense, and then this whole two platoon thing came up, which means so Sal was going to play defense, I was going to play offense, and Mark Redinger, I think he was the only one that played receiver and then also played safety. I think our third or fourth game in, Anastasi I started playing defense and also running back. And they also put in Ron Hoffman more in as a running back to give me a blow if I needed it. So it did change over the course of the year. But Sal Montesani never played offense that year.
What would you like to talk about that I haven't brought up?
Well, one game I'm especially proud of North Tonawanda, and that would be when we were juniors. There was an incident where basically half our team got suspended, and we were playing at home, and we had to play Jamestown. I mean, Jamestown was a powerhouse, and we basically had 20 people to play Jamestown. We held them to 6 points going into the fourth quarter. It was amazing. Our defense was on fire. We took Dennis Bigham was playing tackle. The game before, our center got hurt, so we played center. And now we're playing Jamestown. Now Dennis Bigham's the quarterback. So we had a lineman as a quarterback. We were a mishmash of people, and we held them. And we had 5 turnovers that game, and still only lost maybe 16-0, but it was very proud of that game, very proud of the guys who stepped up, who normally wouldn't start, and we held Jamestown to a pretty good game. The other game I was sort of proud about, we had to take the SETs one Saturday morning, and then we had to go to Sweet Home, and it was their homecoming game. So 3-hour test in the morning, and I'm sure they had to take it too, but 3-hour test in the morning, we're at school, then go to the locker room, they have the homecoming, floats and all that stuff. Marty Barrett was their quarterback, who eventually went on to University of Buffalo to play. And we spanked them. I think it was like 16-0. That was a fun game to play.
When you guys get together, your former teammates, you come in for a reunion, do the stories get better?
They shouldn't they?
Good.
Yeah, our memories get maybe when we dream, we were running off touchdowns or lighting somebody up and doing things that we never did, but yeah, it's fun to talk about some of the stuff we used to do, and maybe after the game more than during the game, yeah, it's fun to talk to even other classes, right? So even the Fitzgerald class and the Ackerman class, we get together to see those guys. It's fun to talk about that stuff.
Do you have any? One last question. Do you have any regrets about your high school career?
Do I have any regrets?
Yes.
Probably. Just maybe working a little bit harder. I mean, we didn't have an off-season program like they do today. Where they have weight rooms and all-year training. It's probably a little bit too much today but we didn't have anything. I mean, it was like, I did weight room training with, Fran Burke and at Rezel, and they had a little universal machine there, and we would sort of do that on our own, lift weights. So I wish I would have, been in better shape and better condition. The other thing I want to mention, Ed, this goes back to my Rezel days, and another mentor I had was Billy Janowski, because I lifted weights with him. He was in our Rezel weightlifting group, and we would do dips. How many dips can you do? How many dips can you do? And Steve Janowski, his brother, was also there. He was a stud. I mean, And the tragedy that happened with Steve Janowski, his freshman year, committed suicide. And that funeral was, it was my first experience with somebody that close to me who I played with on the Tiger Cats, passed away. So I just wanted to mention him and get him out there, because if he was around, he would have started. He would have been in the Hall of Fame without a doubt.
He was a physical specimen as a 7th grader back then. I mean, Stevie was cut and took care of himself pretty well.
Oh, his jaw was like this. I mean, he was like, Singletary, back there as a linebacker. His eyes were like this. Same with Sam Montesani. He's just ready to hit. And and his brother was such a nice man. I think his brother's in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, it was devastating. Right. And yeah, he didn't grow up too far past North Avenue.
They grew up over on Masters, on the other side of Rui and Masters. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we had our pockets of different little communities and different athletes, and there was always a game that could be had of something somewhere. I mean, it didn't matter if it was basketball or floor hockey or street hockey or baseball or football. There was always something going on. You could always get a pickup game.
Yeah, we did everything. I hung out with Chrissy Laper over in Rollister Park. We'd go swimming. He was more of a basketball player, but we played baseball together. He was a great athlete. Tim Gibson, we'd watch the Olympics and go over the Turners. It was an old church that they turned into a weightlifting place,
right,
on Falcon Street, or I can't remember now. And we used to go there and wire in a stereo to the speaker system in the old church and work out.
It was a fun time back then. Kraig Broecker, thank you so much for joining me here on the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. Be well, my friend. Take care of yourself. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too, Ed, and to your family. Appreciate it.